Hello, everyone. I'm Florence Chen, President of AIA Hong Kong. Welcome to join our today's event. I'm very happy to have a sustainable office solution here today to share with us their efforts in the furniture and construction industry in delivering a carbon net zero with a circular economy. However, before I hand it over the floor to our speaker today, Pamela Hinton, I do want to share my little story about a chair. Okay, you can see my screen, right? So this is a chair that is with me at my home for 8 years now. And it is a chair that it could already have been in the landfill 8 years ago. So the story was, 8 years ago, I was having a nighttime meeting with a group of friends in this international chain coffee shop somewhere in Causeway Bay. So it was already past 9 and then the shop was already closed, but the seating were still outside. So a group of us were having a meeting there. You can see the chair that I just showed earlier. And we were having a meeting, and in the middle of it, a group of like 5 big guys came over, and they were like, okay, why don't you just move to the other end of the atrium? We need to remove these chairs. And then we were like, okay, wow, where are you taking the chairs to? And then they said, it turns out that these 5 guys represented a furniture company that they do replacement for furnitures for international brands, a chain, cafe, restaurants, and they work at night. And every night, overnight, they would just bring in new furnitures, take the old one, send it to the dumping ground for the landfill, and then move on. And we were looking at those chairs; they were like totally fine. And then why are you like trashing it? But it is, I guess it was just the reality is a lot of these like commercial places, commercial restaurant, cafe, they need to maintain like the furniture always as like fairly new and always something different to attract the customer. But then we were start wondering, like, what can we do? I mean, to save these resources. And it is after maybe about 7 years later, I hear about the SOS, the Sustainable Office Solution. And I was like, wow, this is right on. This is something that we as a society, a community should be doing, because a lot of these resources could be saved and upcycled and find a new life. And I think this is a great opportunity for us today to have the SOS representative Pamela Hinton, general managers for SOS, to be speaking for us, to share with us the efforts that they have been doing on these subjects. With that, I'm handing over to Pamela.
Thanks, Florence. Hi, everyone. I hope you're all well. I'll just share my screen. Okay, can everyone see that, I hope? So, hi everyone. Today's presentation is called Every Material Matters, the Path to Net Zero with a Circular Economy. The presentation today is going to focus on who we are as a company, what we do, and how we can work together and collaborate as an industry to make sustainability the standard within our industry. And to start with, we'll just introduce the problem, our why, essentially. We will compare traditional furniture disposal and construction materials with a circular model. We will describe the process flow from the initial inquiry to how we report and submit that report to our clients. We'll then explore the role of architects and designers in promoting and facilitating a sustainable inventory management service. Compare the opportunities for this service with landlords, developers, and corporations. And lastly, explain how the service impacts community causes such as NGOs, schools, and universities.
I think you need to advance your slides.
Sorry, what do you mean? Is that?
I'm still seeing the cover.
Oh, really? Okay. Maybe. So you're not seeing the agenda page? That's strange.
No. Maybe you get out and then we share the screen again. Okay, can everyone see that? I'm now seeing a presenter mode rather than a full screen.
All right, sorry, hold on a second.
Trust us, we practice.
We did. Okay. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Let me, if I can go, I'll just go to presenter mode. Is that okay? Or are you seeing?
No.
Okay, we'll just do that. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Is that okay? Okay, cool. So essentially, SOS was born out of two big problems, and big problems lead to strong desire for solutions. So while the presentation today is focused on the solutions, I think it's worthwhile spending a few moments just introducing our why. And essentially, we have two big global problems. The first is waste and what we do with it. In Hong Kong, our landfills are really a ticking time bomb, and the city is gradually being consumed with its own waste. As you can see here, in 2020, 2 years ago, we produced 1.25 million tons of waste. And on the right, you can see this equates to almost 2,200 fully loaded Airbus A380s, or roughly 6 to 7 times the global population of elephants. I'm not sure if any of you have ever been to a landfill site in Hong Kong, but it is a pretty sad sight. Globally, we generate about 2 billion tons of waste each year, and that's expected to grow by about 70%, or to around 3.4 billion tons by 2050. So waste is a big issue. In the construction industry, buildings, as I'm sure you know, generate nearly 40% of our annual greenhouse gas emissions, which is problem number 2. Currently, operational carbon accounts for a little bit under 30% of CO2 emissions, and embodied carbon is around 11%. I'm sure you know this well, but to go over again, embodied carbon is the carbon dioxide emissions associated with materials and construction processes throughout the whole life cycle of a building or infrastructure or furniture item. It includes any CO2 that is created during the manufacturing, the transport of the materials to the job site or the factory, and the construction or manufacturing processes used. Simply put, embodied carbon is the carbon footprint of something, such as a building or a piece of furniture. Now, embodied carbon is distinct from operational carbon. So operational carbon is the carbon that comes from energy, heat, lighting, etc. As our industry innovates and advances in reducing this operational carbon, recent data from the World Green Building Council indicates that embodied carbon is becoming a larger portion of a building's overall carbon footprint. Therefore, embodied carbon is really the critical focus for us and for the focus for the design and construction industry moving forward. In the furniture industry, As you can see here, these are some embodied carbon figures for some common corporate and residential furniture items. Sofas generally have the most embodied carbon due to the foams, adhesives, upholstery, frames, etc. With global furniture revenue currently at about $546 billion US, around 70 to 80% of that goes into landfill each year. So you can start to appreciate just how much embodied carbon in furniture is dumped into our environment each year. Now, to compare that with plastic straws, which have garnered a lot of attention in the last few years, the embodied carbon of one sofa equates to almost 62,000 plastic straws. If we're talking weight, a typical 3-seater sofa equals the same weight as 162,000 straws. So plastic straws are still a huge issue, but hopefully this just shows how big an impact we can make with furniture. Achieving net zero embodied emissions is going to require a really big shift in how we design and how we think about buildings and how we fit them out. So the World Green Building Council issued a bold new vision that by 2030, less than 8 years away, all new buildings, infrastructure, and renovations will have at least 40% less embodied carbon emission, with significant upfront carbon reduction, and all new buildings are net zero operational carbon. And by 2050, so less than 30 years, 28 years away, new buildings, infrastructure, and renovations will have net zero embodied carbon, and all buildings, including existing buildings, must be net zero operational carbon. So to do that, as I said, will require big shifts in how we design and construct and consider new buildings and existing buildings. It essentially comes down to adopting principles of reuse, reduce, and sequester. So in terms of reuse, we're looking at reusing existing furniture and equipment and reusing as much as possible, using recycled materials where possible, and designing for disassembly and deconstruction. So particularly in this industry, we need to start adopting and really thinking about the long-term impact of what we're designing and allowing for deconstruction, allowing for modularity and things to be moved around and deconstructed and disassembled and relocated where possible. In terms of reduction, we really need to limit the use of raw materials and new product in what we build. We need to be optimizing the materials we do use, and we need to specify low to zero carbon materials. In terms of sequestering, that is the design of carbon sequestering sites or the use of carbon sequestering materials. And that is quite an exciting space at the moment. There are a number of materials that can isolate and sequester carbon, including carpet, bricks, timber, and even vodka. I'm sure we all know clients who talk a lot about sustainability and how they're offsetting and all that kind of stuff, which is great, but there's also a lot of rhetoric, and the team behind SOS felt frustrated with much of the box ticking and rhetoric about sustainability, and we wanted to create a solution that was tangible and quantifiable and really produced real results. With over 30 years in the design and construction industry, the team behind SOS has observed firsthand the full life cycle of furniture and architectural products. We looked at our sphere of influence and where we could make the most impact in our industry in a meaningful way, and that really led us to furniture. So loose furniture items are something that can be relocated in a fairly easy way, as opposed to construction materials that may need contractors and disassembly, and it's a little bit more complicated. Furniture, to be honest, is sort of the low-hanging fruit that makes a significant impact. The life cycle of typical furniture varies, but considering how the built environment and in particular workplaces are changing so rapidly, the life cycle of most furniture is decreasing very quickly. Many of our clients have come to us with furniture that was purchased just before COVID, and due to work from home and various shifts in work practices, much of this almost brand new furniture is now redundant. As desks are becoming smaller, people are optimizing their real estate. Many furniture that was purchased just a couple of years ago is now really redundant and becoming a bit irrelevant in the new sort of work practices. Traditionally, the majority of this furniture would be disposed to landfill, really because there has been no viable alternative to date. We do have clients who've come to us who tried to donate directly, but it is a fairly lengthy, onerous task trying to liaise with a whole number of NGOs and arrange logistics. So that's really where our service comes in to help alleviate that stress. So with the adoption of a circular economy model and using services from a company like SOS, we can start to make a really big positive impact to the entire life cycle of furniture, including the use of raw materials. Production is affected, distribution is affected, use is affected, and even end-of-life disposal. For instance, most task chairs from companies like Steelcase, Herman Miller, etc., have lifespans or are designed to last at least 20, sometimes even 40 plus years, but they often get tossed after 2 to 5 years, purely because they're just not needed. So by redistributing these items within the community, we create a ripple effect of positive financial, social, and environmental benefits. This infographic just illustrates our process. So we start always with a site assessment. It's very important that we go to site to do a thorough assessment of the inventory. We have as-built floor plans, we take photos, we take key dimensions, and we assess the furniture to create a service proposal. Once we're awarded the project, we then compile a very detailed inventory list of all of the items that we're dealing with. And that includes the brand, the model, the dimensions, photos, the condition that it's in. And we submit that back to the client and then work with them to assess what items still have value and what can be reused by the client within their portfolio. If they're relocating or renovating, we try and help them to realize the value of the items that are there. Anything that cannot be reused by the client, we can also offer to employees through our staff take-home program. And that essentially includes chairs and small items, particularly with staff working from home a lot. We find that the redistribution of task chairs or ergonomic chairs is quite valuable. So companies can offer those sort of items to staff, and we arrange the whole process. So we arrange payment, delivery, all the registration and communication with staff is managed by SOS. And anything that cannot be reused by the company or by staff is then filtered through our repurposing recycling program. And that includes community donation. And we have a number of NGOs, schools, universities, etc., that we deal with. We have local repurposing vendors as well as international repurposing vendors. And we also have recycling vendors. So recycling is always the last solution, kind of the last port of call. We try and keep things reused as much as possible, but if it is old and cannot be reused, we can have it recycled. So that essentially ensures that as little as possible goes to landfill. Now that whole process is documented really thoroughly, and we collect weight bills, receipts, testimonials from donation recipients, photographs, and we essentially combine all of that information, all of that data into a very detailed ISO compliant report. And that report captures the embodied carbon emissions, the savings, the tonnage diverted from landfill, and then all of the community impact effect of this. So anything that has been donated, we document that very clearly and transparently. We also attach the inventory list, the final inventory list, to the report, so the client can see very transparently where every item ends up. And that is very, very different to standard reinstatement processes or demolition processes, which are very opaque. Often the client just may see their furniture going into a skip bin or into a truck and never really knowing where it ends up. So our service is very much focused on accountability and traceability of all items. So that project impact report is tailored to each of our clients. It is a very, very detailed report. It's got all the information needed for the C-suite, for ESG reporting, for LEED accreditation, as well as a full project summary of everything that was managed and run through the project. In simple terms, this infographic just, again, describes the process in very simple terms, and it's essentially a filtering process or a funnel. So it starts with client reuse, as I mentioned, evaluating the assets, what can be reused by the company and by their staff, then donating, and we try and always prioritize donation to as many local organizations as possible. And anything that cannot be donated or repurposed locally will be upcycled or recycled. Now, I'll just present a short video to explain the process.
Every day we are growing, changing, moving and evolving. The shrouded byproduct of this significant churn is an even greater amount of waste. Each new project typically means unwanted resources are dumped into our landfills, where they remain for hundreds, if not thousands of years. As the world attempts to tackle environmental sustainability, corporate real estate waste is largely ignored. Our team recognised this was not a viable way to continue, and sustainable office solutions had to be found. We developed a streamlined filtering process to redirect assets from landfill and support a circular economy. Our first pilot project started just 4 weeks before our client's move. Within the time constraint, we still successfully saved almost 4,000 office items from going into the landfill. In doing so, we avoided 350 tons of carbon emissions, the equivalent to around 360 round trips from Hong Kong to New York. That also equates to the amount of carbon absorbed by over 350 trees over 40 years. What makes SOS unique? We start by assessing and categorizing your assets. We then filter the inventory through a multi-step process, starting with client reuse. Our clients select items they wish to reuse or offer to their staff through our Take Me Home program. If requested, we thoroughly clean and recondition items prior to collection and delivery. The remaining items are then offered to our wide network of local NGOs, charities and beneficiaries. We offer efficient redistribution within our network or to our clients' preferred community cause. Lastly, our strategic alliances with verified vendors ensure we extract maximum value out of the remaining inventory. Once the project is completed, we produce a detailed report on environmental and social impact, including final destinations of all assets. This document supports ESG reporting and alignment of corporate values. Simple actions, big impact. Embark on this journey with us and contribute to a brighter, cleaner future. We believe in sustainable office solutions.
So that was just a very short video that describes the process that we go through, essentially what I've just described as well. Now, the role of architects and designers, we have identified a few key things that I think are very, very important as we move forward on this sustainability journey. And your role as consultants is very important in making sure this becomes the new standard. We believe that there is no going back. There is no option of continuing the way we are currently going, and evolving and expanding sustainability and circularity in our industry is really the only option moving forward. So your role as architects and designers and consultants is firstly to stay informed with circularity options, with recycling and reuse opportunities, understanding what vendors are available in each location, and also understanding the benefits and risks. We find still many of our clients are quite short-term thinkers. Many of our clients are, looking forward long-term, but there are still many clients who just want the short-term option and short-term solution. So your role is really to help educate your clients on the long-term impact of their decisions and the long-term impact of their projects. And also understand your clients' ESG and CSR vision. So many of your clients, I'm sure, are having ESG statements in their annual report. They may have sustainability statements, sustainability visions and goals. So understanding what they are and how your services and the basic ecosystem services can integrate into that is really important. It is also important to be an advocate for sustainability and go beyond the box ticking for accreditation. I've found, as a designer personally, I've found quite a lot of frustration with some of the box ticking that is in our industry currently. And sometimes there is a bit of a limitation on innovation and doing something that's really outside the box. So I would challenge you to really go beyond the standard processes and the box ticking that sometimes plagues our industry, and try to educate your clients on the necessity for circularity. As I said before, this is really not an option anymore, but a must do for all projects. And also ensure maximum impact by engaging your client, the project team, and partners as early as possible. We do have clients come to us just a few days before they're due to move and want us to help redistribute items. We do really need ideally a couple of months to prepare, to do the inventory list, to find donation recipients, to find vendors. So the earlier you can engage the project team and your client to understand the process and what's involved and the opportunities for reuse, the better it is for the overall impact and the overall result. Next is collaboration. So cooperating with vendors during the inventory compilation and design phases is very, very important. As designers, we often assume that everything may be new, and that's obviously shifting quite rapidly. But designing with the entire project team, with engineers, architects, designers, furniture vendors, collaborating to ensure that the maximum amount of items and product is reused is the best. Sharing product and project information, again, with the project team is very critical, not just for the project team, but also for companies like us. If you can help us to share as much information as possible regarding timing, regarding project information, program, etc., that helps us. And consider opportunities for reuse and recycling during the demolition phase. And that may mean that we need to look at how we reinstate and demolish and the program associated with that. But it's really looking at the opportunities for integrating this service into the project programs. Next is challenge. And as I've touched on, we need to question the status quo. So we need to look at what options are out there. What are the processes, the systems that are available that could improve the overall outcome? Just because there is a traditional use and dispose process that most clients embark on, it doesn't mean that that has to be implemented in the future. And we need to challenge the whole project team to consider the long-term impact of this project. As I said, many clients and project managers and designers do not often consider the long-term impact of purchasing furniture and throwing it away 2 years later. And then the reporting. So we really would encourage you to collaborate with us on the reporting and understand the project impact, consider the opportunities for improvement and change for future projects. So for each time we produce a report, it creates a benchmark for that client and helps them to understand what impact they've had and what they can do for the future. It's also not just about large projects. So we can have a really positive impact on fairly small projects. So it's not just associated with very large projects. And lastly, it doesn't have to be perfect. We don't necessarily have to achieve 100% success rate. Just reusing some items is better than nothing. So don't think that this all has to be perfect. We just need to start on this journey towards sustainability. In terms of landlords and developers and then direct clients, there's really a very exciting opportunity to standardize this within exit agreements, with lease agreements, and with consultants and contractors. So in terms of landlords, we're speaking to a number of landlords within Hong Kong, and a few of them are starting to look at this green pledge or integrating sort of green lease agreements with their tenants. We're looking at landlords implementing targets that all incoming tenants must achieve to achieve certain sustainability and circularity targets. And essentially that makes certain premises valuable for companies who may have these ESG mandates. It can make those premises more attractive if you have to meet those requirements. We can incorporate sustainable inventory management into their exit agreement. So it really just becomes standardized that all tenants who are exiting their lease have to go through this sustainable process. And we can also offer incentives for tenants who want to purchase new furniture. It doesn't mean that tenants have to purchase everything secondhand. But if there are certain rooms or certain areas where we can look at circular furniture options, that could be a very viable solution for integration of secondhand product into a design. And we do have a number of very, very high quality items that are available for pretty much immediate purchase and integration into a fit out. And landlords really want to be seen as a leading sustainable development performer. In a highly competitive market, it's very important that landlords are seen to be innovating and be out the front of sustainable development. And for developers, it's very much the same thing. For contractors and consultants, there needs to be this minimum target. We can incorporate recycling and repurposing into construction materials and furniture, reducing landfill, reducing waste and material procurement costs. We're now working with a number of companies to document the recycling of construction materials. So it's not always just about furniture, but we can capture the life cycle of construction materials and document the savings and the recycling of those materials. And we want to attract innovative, forward-thinking tenants who seek alignment with a developer. And same as landlords, just be seen as being out the front, leading sustainable development. And then for corporations and businesses, we need to help them to be responsible, sustainable, and quantify the redistribution of their assets. So as I mentioned before, the service that we offer is very tangible. It's not sort of airy-fairy carbon offsetting that some clients do not understand. There's a quantifiable redistribution of assets that is very transparent. This achieves minimal landfill disposal. Currently, with over 35 projects that we've completed in the last few months, we've achieved over 99% landfill diversion. The service also allows for alignment of corporate values with employees and stakeholders. So companies who are, again, out the front talking about their ESG vision and sustainability can now align these corporate values with their employees and with stakeholders. There's a reduction of furniture capex. So the more furniture that can be reused essentially reduces new furniture cost. And lastly, corporations can save time and money on decommission and reinstatement costs. By clearing out furniture, it does save significant time for a reinstatement contractor, and reinstatement costs can be saved through the removing, firstly, of furniture. The next slide is just a very short case study for a project that we did for EY. So this was done very, very last minute. EY came to us just a few weeks before they were due to relocate from Admiralty to Wantaiku Place. We had a discussion about the opportunity to reuse some of their items. And over a couple of short meetings with the project team, we managed to work with the project team and designers to integrate a number of items into the new fit out, into the new design. We also managed to offer a number of items to their employees to take home, and items that were not reused by EY or by their employees were donated. So we had a little bit under 950 items, I think, that were donated. And the other items were recycled or repurposed locally and internationally. So in a very short space of time, we managed to save 58 tons of furniture that would typically be dumped in landfill. That saved over 350,000 kilograms of embodied carbon and roughly $1.68 million saved through the reuse of furniture. And that's mostly task chairs, pedestals, and storage units. So that was a very, very, very beneficial project, and we've completed a number of projects since then of various sizes. In terms of the impact that we can make on the community, these are just a few photographs of various items of furniture that we have donated to organizations such as Hong Kong University, SPCA, Impact Hong Kong, and many, many others. The image down the bottom with the stripy flooring, that is a project that we did for a local government-funded school where we donated a number of Vitra task chairs, TVs, lockers, and microwaves to a school for their AI lab. And these kids from sort of underprivileged homes and environments are able to enjoy this space sitting on $8,000 Vitra chairs in a really beautiful space. So as you can see, we donate a number of different items from pods, seating, tables, acoustic pods, storage, and try and redistribute as much as possible within the community. This is some of the partner programs that we work with and some of the donation network that we mentioned in the video. We have over 200 organizations that we can donate to, and that is growing constantly. So SOS has a staff member who is dedicated to donation and resale and repurposing, and she is responsible for expanding our network of donation and managing the whole donation process. This slide just explains our process and our impact so far. So over 17,000 items just really in the last 8 or 9 months have been diverted from landfill. We've saved close to $1.2 million worth of carbon emissions. Over 250 tons worth of furniture has been diverted from landfill, and roughly now almost 1,700 items redistributed to the local community. So to end the presentation, we created this business about 12 months ago to provide an alternative to a conventionally wasteful and short-sighted process and really drive lasting value for our clients' business. Our service supports ESG and CSR mandates and provides much needed resources to community organizations. We challenge the status quo, not only to solve many of the financial, social, and environmental issues associated with our industry, but because we believe there really is no alternative. By partnering with architects and industry professionals like yourselves and combining our expertise, our aim is to build a thriving ecosystem of corporations, landlords, developers, and individuals that are committed to driving positive change. To make this the status quo, we have to intentionally build this into a viable, profitable industry. We believe in an environmentally sustainable and prosperous future, and we know that this is not going to be the result of luck or coincidence, but really inspired action taken by innovators and visionaries. This is who we are, and we hope you are too. Thank you.
Fantastic. Yeah. Thank you, Pamela, for the wonderful presentation. Yes, I mean, we should all join you guys as to participate and become like to push the agenda forward. I should also like supplement the chairs that I mentioned about early in the presentations. The global coffee shop organization that I mentioned, I mean, they did talk to, I think, the SOS group, as what I understand. So there's also a positive impact that you guys are making. I'm hearing there are some questions from the audience. I think the first question, both questions is all from Fatima. The question is, how is the pricing estimate for reusing furniture?
Sure. So the way we price our service is really based on the volume that we deal with. So we provide an end-to-end service that includes everything from the initial inventory compilation all the way through to reporting. And it really comes down to the amount of furniture that we're dealing with. So we price based on volume, how many workers we need, how many trucks we need, how many containers we need, and we produce a lump sum fee. In very simple terms, that lump sum fee is very, very similar to the cost of traditional disposal. So for a client to pay for a contractor to come in and smash up the furniture, put it in a bin, and eventually dump it in landfill, is somewhere around $10 to $15 a square foot, broadly. Now that cost is not usually that transparent. It's built into reinstatement costs and demolition costs, but that's roughly the price of disposal. Our fees are aligned with that very closely, sometimes a little bit more, but it's slightly more than the cost of traditional disposal.
Okay, good. I think you also answered the question from Jackie, who also has a similar question about like how do you convince your client? Yeah. Okay.
I mean, and it is. I mean, to be honest, Jackie, the cost is probably higher than disposal, but that's what we do. I mean, we're doing a sustainable service. We are not just a contractor who's coming in and smashing it up and dumping it in landfill. We are a professional service that provides valuable ESG reporting and ISO compliant reporting. We provide a digital inventory list of all of the furniture, and it's a professional service. So yes, it is going to be higher than disposal, but that really is the green premium for now that we all need to consider, to be doing the right thing, not just dumping all of this furniture in landfill.
Great. Yeah, another question here is there any option of getting recyclables sent to other countries?
Yes, there is. So currently we have a partner that we work with in China who is a licensed repurposer and reseller. So we can actually send large quantities of furniture to China through our repurposer. Now they are, as I said, a licensed repurposer. They can repair, they can refurbish and resell furniture. They can also donate within China. And they also have a network throughout China, but also Japan and throughout Asia. So with the cost of logistics at the moment being so volatile, and there's a significant premium on logistics, it is quite costly to send items internationally. But considering the limitations within Hong Kong to recycle and redistribute, it's a very effective solution for clients who may be looking at redistributing 10 or hundreds of thousands of square feet of furniture. That's a fantastic option. And we also have clients who have, sort of regional portfolios. So if they are giving up space, let's say in Hong Kong, but they have an office in Sri Lanka or Malaysia or Indonesia, we can also facilitate dismantling, wrapping, and sending that furniture to their other offices in other locations.
Among all these different materials that you may be recycling, is there any particular materials you find it particularly difficult to recycle in your projects?
Yes, metal is the easiest material for us to recycle. So we have local vendors that can recycle metal quite easily. In terms of wood, that can be somewhat more difficult to recycle. But again, we do have vendors who can strip laminate off MDF board. So we strip the laminate and recycle the MDF. Metal is easiest. Glass locally is very difficult to recycle in Hong Kong, but we do have vendors in Singapore who can recycle glass for us.
Mm-hmm. And the challenge when you say that it's very difficult to recycle, is it the process or is it the space required to have such operation, or what do you see as the challenge?
I think, unfortunately, Hong Kong is a little bit behind a number of other countries in recycling. They're a little bit behind Singapore, which is more advanced in terms of recycling, but we're starting to see more factories and more recycling plants come on board. So it may be a real estate issue, or it may be kind of a government policy issue, but I think we're still very much at the early days of understanding the opportunities of recycling. And I think in the next few years, we're going to see a massive expansion of recycling facilities locally and potentially just across the border as well. I think there's going to be a huge amount of new recycling plants coming online. Some of them are already under construction in Hong Kong locally.
There's also a question from Vicky. Some furniture are reused, donated, or recycled. How do you facilitate this process to direct the furniture to the right stream?
Yeah, so Vicky, we, as I mentioned before, we have someone dedicated purely for donation who is responsible for managing our donation network. And we work very closely with our donation network to understand their demand and from our side what the supply is. So in simple terms, it's a very streamlined matchmaking process, understanding wish list versus supply and trying to match that up as effectively as possible. We are in the process of building an online software platform to facilitate this in a more streamlined way and creating a Shopify site for B2B, B2C. But at the moment, it's really a case of liaising with our network to understand what we can donate in the time frame available, and then what can be redistributed to our recycling and repurposing vendors. As I said before, we try and donate as much as possible, But as word is spreading about our service, we have a number of organizations, SMEs and small businesses coming to us wanting to purchase circular furniture. So we're able to sell this product to the community, or even staff who may be working from home who are looking for task chairs or small items. We can manage to sell these items to them directly. So it's really about trying to manage it in a streamlined way where we maximize the value and only recycle if absolutely necessary.
Thank you. There's also another question from Fatima. Is there any plan to open, I guess what she was referring to is other offices or like going outside Hong Kong?
Yeah, so we have an office in Hong Kong, we have an office in Singapore, and we are expanding into China this year. We do have a couple of organizations that we know of that we're working closely with in Canada, the US, and Europe. So there are other companies globally who are doing something similar. But as we expand, I think we will start with Asia and potentially expand globally. And our software that we're developing at the moment will help us to do that more efficiently. Currently, as I said, Hong Kong and Singapore, expanding into China this year.
Do you see a role that the government is playing? I'm just interested to know, certainly because your head office is based in Hong Kong, and understandably start with Hong Kong. How do you see the role of government is playing in the process of the work that you are doing?
Yeah, I mean, the government is a very key part of this. And I think from the engagement we've had with government, this is now a huge priority for them in terms of waste management and carbon particularly. The government are really starting to highlight this as a massive issue. So we are working quite closely with them to understand the opportunities and what we can develop from a furniture perspective and also a waste management perspective. So working with government bodies, with SSID, with Baguio, EPD, etc., is a significant part of our development process.
And potentially, like Hong Kong government being one of the biggest employer, so they can potentially also engage with your efforts and see what we can do to improve their work environment as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have another question here from Hishan. Can you address the issue of sea freight and its high pollution? So how is that being factored into the overall cost and strategy with like shipping?
Yeah, so as I said before, we try and donate and redistribute as much as possible locally. We do send items to China as necessary, and it's done in the most efficient way possible. So by redistributing locally, we're actually saving a lot of sea freight of new materials. As I'm sure you're aware, a lot of our clients are saving having to purchase new furniture from Europe and from America and saving that sea freight and the embodied carbon emissions of that. But sea freight is really only used as necessary. We are not shipping unless absolutely necessary. And we do factor that into our cost and into our strategy. So it's very carefully considered. All of our reporting is considering the overall impact of transport. So the number of trucks we use, the efficiency of the trucks, where those trucks go and how many avenues locally are used, as well as shipping internationally, the shipping costs and carbon emissions of that.
Yeah. And I suppose like locally, there's a lot of groups that could potentially have benefit from your donations. as much as possible.
Yeah.
May, do you have any, since you also have the camera on?
Yes. Well, thank you, Pamela. I really enjoyed the presentation, and it's amazing to see how much has been done within 12 months for your company. So I'd like to understand what has been the biggest challenge during this process of kind of setting up this sustainable business, and also your future strategy in the next 1 to 2 years of, for example, we talk about expansion into other region, but also expansion into other industry, for example, retail or hotel industry that also have a lot of furniture. So I think, yeah, it would be good to know more.
Yeah. I mean, there are a number of different challenges. I think some clients really are on board with this whole process and have been very big advocates of what we're trying to do. And a number of clients are still in that sort of traditional use and dispose mode, and they see SOS as being potentially an optional cost, or they expect SOS to provide the service for free. And it's sometimes difficult to justify that we're a professional service that provide an end-to-end service. So the cost is always a big factor. And as I was chatting to Florence about this earlier, a lot of this is driven by cost for a number of our clients. And that is, I think, going to continue to be a significant factor within our industry. It is very cost driven, particularly with the last few years of COVID. A lot of our clients are very, very cost driven. So cost is a big factor. But also, because this is somewhat new as an industry, it's really about educating our clients on the process and understanding that we're trying to do the right thing. We're trying to redistribute high quality furniture. So there's I think a perception potentially that the furniture that we redistribute is old and broken and not valuable. And we're really trying to shift the perception of circular furniture being an excellent option. It doesn't necessarily have to mean that it is sort of 10, 15 years old and a little bit crummy. Yeah. In terms of future and strategy, I think, again, it's really just about educating our clients into integrating this into their process and making this the status quo. So making this just a normal part of the project process.
I'm curious, the work that you are doing is multifaceted. In one way, you need to know knowledge about furnitures, and you need to know knowledge about the NGO. You need to have knowledge about like all this recycling program. Maybe you can tell us a little bit about like, what's your team? I mean, what kind of character or people are in your team that could work to come up with this meaningful program?
Yeah, so I mean, the team is diverse. So we have project managers, we have project coordinators, we have carbon consultants and carbon experts. Myself, I'm an interior designer, so I have experience with the design industry, construction industry, and also selecting furniture, specifying furniture, procuring furniture. So I understand that whole process. And essentially, we all have different areas of expertise, and we kind of come together on a united front, essentially, to move this forward using all of our sort of varied networks and expertise. So we have people from government backgrounds, we have people from corporate backgrounds, people from NGO backgrounds, and it's quite a diverse group of people, as I mentioned, but it does make things interesting. We're not all coming from the same perspective or the same sort of experience, and we're able to share our knowledge, share our networks, share our expertise, not just in furniture as well. I think, as you mentioned before, we are looking at materials, we're looking at equipment, anything possible really within our sphere of influence that we can redistribute and reuse as much as possible. For now, we're focusing on furniture, but the opportunities outside of furniture are significant as well.
Yeah, I do have one more question, because you also mentioned about waste management as another like big goals that you guys have. And a lot of the projects right now you describe is about office relocation. So it's quite straightforward to understand what the corporate needs are. But have you come across with projects that actually involve a construction site, and that, you know, like we always have waste disposal problem at the beginning of starting a construction. So that's a much larger amount of waste that we have to deal with. So was there similar kind of project that you have come across already?
Yeah, so we've done a couple of projects now where we're actually working with the main contractor to recycle as much of their construction materials as possible. So for instance, we just did a project in Mongkok with a client where we cleared out an entire building worth of furniture, which is about almost 90,000 square feet worth of furniture. And we then worked with the main contractor to document the recycling of fit out materials. So it was the raised floor, the carpet, the glazed partitions, the ceiling system, as much as possible was recycled. And we're now looking at documenting that process and calculating the life cycle of those materials, the embodied carbon of those materials, and where it ends up going, whether it's recycled, whether it goes to landfill or other sites. So various clients are now very interested in documenting that process and documenting what the impact is of fit out processes and demolition processes. And as I mentioned earlier, it creates a benchmark to understand what the carbon footprint is of a fit out project or a demolition project. And from there, once we have that carbon footprint or that benchmark, we can then look at ways to improve in the future for future projects.
Okay. Probably this is the last question, also from Fatima. What, say, for example, that you get all these like furnitures, materials through this exercise. What if you have a trouble finding a recipient? Yeah.
So we donate directly from site to site. So we do not have a warehouse. This is why it's very important to engage SOS as early as possible. So we collect wish lists essentially from all of our donation recipients. And as I mentioned before, we have someone who is dedicated to liaising with all of these community causes and organizations to collect wish lists from them to understand what they need, when they need it, and then we can matchmake on that basis. But we also, on the flip side of that, once we have projects awarded and we produce the inventory list, we can then distribute those within our network and communicate that to our network to say, this is what's available, this is when it is available, please contact us to register your interest. So it's a little bit of a two-way street, but we do have community organizations who register with us and can be on that mailing list essentially to understand what is made available. And once they register for the items and register their interest and confirm the items, we basically dismantle or wrap or package it on site and deliver it straight to them. We do not basically just take it off site, store it in a warehouse for a few months and then redistribute. So we try and make it as efficient and streamlined as possible. That is changing, and we are, as I mentioned before, we're creating a software to help streamline that process. We're building a Shopify site to have direct engagement with NGOs and sort of B2C opportunities. So people can go to our site and purchase directly and arrange for delivery directly that way. And once the software is available, it will mean that there's an online marketplace that's built into the software. So anything we deal with, anything we manage that is available for donation or for resale is put onto that online marketplace and people can purchase directly, whether you're an NGO or another organization.
I can imagine like timing and logistic coordination is a big part of of this exercise.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you so much, Pamela. It's wonderful for you to share. I can see that that's also part of your passion, and that is something that you are proud of, being part of contributing to the community. I think that's great effort. I think maybe we should leave your contact information in the chat box. So if anyone who knows any organization that are interested in participating in the program, whether it's a donor or whether it's a recipient, or maybe you want to consider joining an SOS, just contact Pamela. So she just left her contact information in the chat box. So thank you again, Pamela, and the SOS team for this wonderful event. As part of the AIA Hong Kong efforts, we are this year we're trying to also introduce you to more other like carbon neutral ideas and strategies. And the next events that we are going to have will be in next month, towards the end of May. We are going to have Tom Jones, FAIA, also a principal as Lee's Wonderful Architects. He's going to share with us about mass timber constructions, in particular his research of using the hardwood as a mass timber constructions. So stay tuned for our event notice. Thank you again, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your Friday afternoon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. And you're always welcome to come and visit us in our office. We have a great coffee machine and a really beautiful showroom as part of JEB. So if anyone wants to drop in for a coffee and have a chat, you're always very, very welcome.
Okay. Fantastic. See you guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. See you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.